Hello and a very warm welcome to my series on successful conflict management. My name is Ania Kolbuszewska. Effective listening is one of the most useful tools for preventing conflict or managing it successfully. At the risk of repeating something that you have certainly heard before, I'll say that generally successful communication is not only about what and how we say, but it's equally importantly about how we listen. In her book, You're Not Listening, Kate Murphy defines listening well as figuring out what's on someone's mind and demonstrating that you care enough to want to know. She says that to listen is to be interested, and that the goal is to leave the exchange having learned something. Catherine Hampson of St. Mary's University in San Antonio, Texas, uses an excellent analogy for what happens when we listen. She says listening is like playing catch using a piece of wet clay. Each person who plays catches this piece of clay and shapes it using their way of seeing the world before throwing it back. And their way of seeing the world in that particular moment depends not only on things like education, race, gender, age, relationship with the other person, but also, for example, mood at the time of the game, distractions, and a score of other factors. And all these factors influence how the piece of clay is shaped. If we use this analogy, it becomes clear that what gets most in the way of understanding other people is the listener's background and my emotions, as well as assumptions I'm making based on my experience. It's sometimes said that assumptions work like earplugs. They can actually stop you from hearing. This means that if I want to listen well, I have to know myself and to know what my vulnerabilities are. I also have to know that even with the best intentions, we still have a tendency to assign people to certain categories or mental rubrics that we have. And we assign people to these categories even before they start speaking. So, how can we make sure that people feel heard and understood? First of all, make sure that you respond by giving descriptive and evaluative information instead of just nodding or paraphrasing. The person you're listening to wants to know that you understand why they are telling you this particular story and what it means to them. So keep asking yourself the question of, why is this person telling me this? Tip number 2. Because people are governed by emotions rather than just pure logic, try to work out what those emotions are. Try to pick up on non-verbal clues rather than focusing on words alone. This will help you respond to this person on a level on which they are communicating something personally important and meaningful. Also, focus on the person that you're talking to and not on finding an amusing or witty response to what they're saying. Listen in order to understand them and their message, and not to answer. Be open and curious about this person. If you're not, no amount of nodding or paraphrasing will make them believe that you really actually hear them. My next tip is this. We think a lot faster than the other person speaks, and because of that, we tend to make little side trips in our heads when we are listening to someone. We start wondering about their fashion sense, about the hair or the accent. But if you consciously stop yourself from doing this, you will have gained extra time to think about and analyze what you hear, and that leads to a far better understanding. The additional benefit of doing this is that the better you get at it, the more successful you will be as a debater. And finally, my last tip, when you listen, be there and only there. Don't check the time. Don't rush the person you're listening to. Give them the time and the space they need. Be there with them and for them. Listening, after all, is not about you. It's about them. And with that, thanks for listening and see you soon.